Hey there, entrepreneur, and welcome to today's show. You are in for a good one. I am joined by David Selinger, who was an early employee at Amazon, working directly under Jeff Bezos. He led the R&D arm of Amazon's data mining and personalization team. He also co-founded Redfin, now a multi-billion with a B dollar company, and founded Rich Relevance, a company that offers personalized shopping experiences for large retail brands, including Macy's, Barney's New York, Office Depot, and others. And he is now in the process of inventing and bringing to market just there for homes and businesses. I'm really excited to talk about the next big thing in home security called Deep Sentinel. So David, welcome to the show.
Michelle, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So take us back, friend. I know you got your first computer at like age 6, which props
I
on
did.
that,
My
man.
mom
Props
got
on
that for us.
Good job,
Yep.
Mom. And I know that, I did a little bit of my homework, but, take us back to college days, friend, because I know you went out and then came back in, huh?
Yeah. So when my mom got me that computer when I was 6, I grew up in a little town in Oregon, and I decided that I wanted to be a techie. I wanted to like build stuff. I wanted to do stuff with my hands and build cool stuff. I watched this special on PBS about Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and that's one of the top technical schools in the country. My aunt happened to be a postdoc or a professor there at the time. And so I was like really enthused about that. So I wrote them a letter, told them I was going to go there. They wrote me back and like sent me a bunch of sweatshirts and a t-shirt and
Nice.
Postcards. And I was like stoked that was where I was going to go. So everybody I met between the ages of 6 and 18 up until November 20th in 1995, I told I was going to MIT. And on November 20th in 1995, I stopped telling people that because they told me I was not allowed to go there. They sent me back my rejection letter.
Oh,
And
MIT.
I was
Thanks for the
so
sweatshirt.
heartbroken. Yeah, saying if you could send that stuff back to us, we'd like that back. And it was really, that was my first big life setback. I was crushed by that. I mean, literally 12 years of my life, it was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But let's just put this setback in context. I had not gotten my responses from other schools. I ended up getting into Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, which is in Pittsburgh, one of the other top schools in the nation. I got full rides at Carnegie Mellon, another engineering school in the Midwest, and University of Washington. I think I applied to University of Oregon as well. So I mean, I had options.
Yeah.
My backup school was Stanford, and I ended up going to Stanford. So I mean, like, let's not shed too many tears there on that part of the story. And Stanford was amazing. I could not have been more blessed. In fact, I think honestly, the admissions councils at the two schools got together and were like, "This is where this guy's got to go," because that was way better for me. I loved it. I met some of the best people in my life there. It was a very entrepreneurial school, whereas MIT is much more kind of technical for the spirit of technology. And so obviously, Stanford's in Silicon Valley. And so that became the foundation of the rest of my career in a lot of ways. As you mentioned, I did drop out. I was going to school in the time period of the biggest, entrepreneurial revolution that we've been exposed to in the .com. And so I had started a couple companies. I dropped out to go do those companies for a couple of years. And then I returned to Stanford in 2001, 2002, and actually finished my degree. And that was, another like really neat experience. Was being able to go back from the working world where we're making tons of money and kind of getting stuff going, to academics where you have problem sets and assignments and go to lectures and people care whether you show up. And in general in work, I've always been in technology where people don't care whether you show up at 9 or 10 or 11 or noon or 2 p.m. as long as you get your stuff done. And at school, classes at 10:15, and if you're not awake till 11, you miss class and you're in trouble. And
exactly.
So yeah, I've always unfortunately or fortunately, I've always been one of those people that pushes the limits of that. In high school, my parents let me skip school and just get my assignments done and take the tests. And so I've always been one of those kids that was always focused on the objectives. And that, I think, also became one of those platforms of growth for me, because in high school I would make deals with my teachers and say, hey, I'm not gonna come to school in the morning, but I will show up in the afternoon and I'll do an advanced college level
Yeah.
experiment with you.
Yeah.
And they'd
Nice.
say, okay, I won't mark you absent. So I'd always kind of like push the limits of what people thought was possible and was okay. I did do that to an error, to an extreme at times, and so I definitely got slapped down by the man many a time throughout my life. And then, as you said, I joined Amazon. From Amazon, built a lot of great products. Loved that experience there. Worked directly with Jeff, as well as a guy named Andy Jassy, who's now the CEO of Amazon.
Yeah.
I then went and started Redfin, which is now about a $2.5 billion publicly traded company. I then started a company called Rich Relevance, which I grew to about $50 million. And then I left that company. And then about 6 years ago, I started Deep Sentinel. And in a lot of ways, I see Deep Sentinel as kind of my swan song. It's definitely the pinnacle of my career. It's the thing I'm the most proud of. And I love waking up every day and working on it. And as you said, it's in the physical security space. If you don't mind, I'll talk about that for 30 seconds.
Go ahead, friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So throughout all this, I studied artificial intelligence. That's where my roots are technically. I love doing that. I still teach and lecture on artificial intelligence almost every week. I went back to my roots after I left my last company. I spent about 2 years in my garage in my lab building robots. I built 3D printers, I built drones, I built all kinds of stuff and try to get them to automate and do stuff. And I stumbled upon the problem in physical security. And, like a lot of entrepreneurs, that kind of origin story was very personal. I was working on AI. There was a type of AI that came out called deep learning, and it really kind of hit the streets around 2014, 2015. So I was working on that. And at the same time, my neighbor had a home invasion. And this woman just down the street from me, we live in a very safe town in a very safe neighborhood. And she has an alarm. She has cameras. She has a really expensive camera system, in fact. And yet she still was the victim of this horrendous crime. And my aha moment was we were sitting in the neighborhood watch meeting, and I had introduced myself. I'm the head of our neighborhood watch. I'm that kind of dork, of course, yes. And
yeah, nice.
So I'd introduced myself, and I asked the police officer who's there, hey, Officer TJ, how come this happened to her? She has an alarm, she has cameras. And he looks at me and he says, well, you're the tech guy. What did you expect the alarm to do? It wasn't armed. Yeah. What did you expect your cameras to do? Like jump out and stop the crime? And I realized that while I'm a technologist, for whatever reason, that industry has like marketed us into believing that these things actually stop crime. And then they don't. Yeah. It's like, they absolutely unconditionally don't. And my answer to him was like, yes, I wanted those things to happen. And I realized none of them do that. I mean, alarm systems are plagued with false alarms. 95 to 99% of the calls from your ADT system at your home or your Xfinity home security system are false alarms. Damn. 95 to 99% are false alarms. So if you're a cop and you get a call, hey, there's a burglar at Michelle's house, they're going to be like, oh, yeah. All right, well, I'm going to finish doing what I'm doing, and then maybe I'll go take a look at that. And in fact, most police departments in America have passed a law. It is now law that most police departments do not need to respond at all to burglar alarms because there's so many false alarms. Freakonomics 10 years ago was studying, and they stumbled across this. They wrote an entire series on why burglar alarms are so horrible for the world. And I fundamentally believe that they actually make you less safe because they lull you into believing.
Yeah, that's a high percentage. That is a scary high percentage.
That's a super high percentage. Yeah. And what it is it's what right? Like the cat jumped off the couch and triggered the motion alarm. You left the garage door open a crack and the wind blew the door open, or some sensor malfunction. And the words of Freakonomics were pretty amazing, which is like, police are not in the business of closing people's garage doors, but for some reason, that's what we expect them to do.
We think they are. Yeah. No, and I can see where the cops would be like, I'm not fucking answering that. That's like the boy who cried wolf, like way too many times.
Oh my gosh. And as if cops don't have real jobs to do, right? Like, hello.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so, it's one of these things that as soon as you peel back the onion one layer, you're just like, oh my God,
Yeah, like that
this
makes
has
me
to
kind
be
of want to throw
changed.
up. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
Like, cause I'm one of those people who always is worried about someone breaking in my house, right? I'm like anxious like that. And I've debated getting one of those systems, and now I will not be.
When we bought our house, it was the first thing I did. I was like,
Yeah, of
hey,
course.
Cynthia, my wife, call ADT and get ADT in here and get it installed. This
Yeah.
is 10 years ago. And I was like, I read through the contract and I'm doing the thing for my family and
Yeah,
I'm going to make my
exactly.
family. It did nothing,
Holy shit.
absolutely nothing. And it wasn't until that aha moment I realized, holy living God, there is nothing more important to me
Than that.
than making sure my family is safe.
Yeah.
And I am doing a piss poor job of doing that. Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
I think it's just because it's the best thing that people know about. Like, what are you going to do? Hire a guard to sit on a chair in front of your house all day? Like,
Right.
no,
No, you're
that's
not. And
crazy.
I think it need, but I mean, somebody has to have that moment that you had. Like that was as much as it sucked for your neighbor, like it had to have happened in order to cause a disruption moment.
Yep. And that's what it was. And for me, I realized, oh my gosh, AI is the technology that can do 99.9% of this. And basically what we do is we take the experience of having a guard sitting outside of your house
Yeah.
and we have AI do 99.9% of that work. And we do it through cameras. And if somebody is doing something suspicious, the AI flags it, brings a guard onto the cameras, and then the guards intervene using two-way audio. So, for example, at my house, you walk up to my house, you're carrying a crowbar, you're wearing a mask. The AI, from the moment you step onto my property, is monitoring that. The moment that it recognizes you have a crowbar and you're doing something suspicious, bam, it pulls a guard onto the camera. The guard, within seconds, literally on average between 5 and 10 seconds, will intervene and say, you need to get away from this property. You stop what you're doing, get away from here. And the police are on their way. And the most important thing about that, well, there's two important things. The first one is 90+% of the time, people just are like, whoa, holy crap. I didn't know cameras
Shocking.
could do that.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. The second thing, though, is that second part of the sentence, the police are on their way. That's the truth.
They're actually,
Because when we
it's a
call the
person.
police,
It's a person calling the police.
yes, ma'am, right? It's
Not
not,
an auto
hey,
dialing.
I have a some sort of motion in the living room, or I have an open garage door. Could you please go close the garage door at the Selinger's household? Like, heck
No.
no. It is. I have a white male, 5'8", wearing a mask, carrying a crowbar, breaking into this house. I need you to respond. Every police department in the country, every police officer in the
Yeah,
country
they don't do
knows
that.
that's a verified crime. I have a description of the suspect. I have a location of the suspect. I have a description of the weapon, and I have a description of the crime. Bam. Because of that, Deep Sentinel, we stop all kinds of crime. We stop trespassing. We stop vandalism. We stop package theft. We stop catalytic converter theft. We protect warehouses, cannabis dispensaries, everything. We have the only arrest in the country for a professional security organization for package theft, because we happen to call this, these police departments. And in one case, we called one in South Carolina. This one was on the news and everything.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, we have a package theft. And the police department's like, well, that's not a priority one call, but it turns out we have an officer at the end of the block, because we're having problems with that neighborhood. We're trying to develop our relationship with them. So we happen to have an officer in the neighborhood. He gets in his car, drives half a block, arrests the guy with the package in his hand, knocks on the door. The wife opens the door. She was in the shower, so she didn't even get our calls or anything. The first time she finds out about this, the officer is there with her package, returning it. The guy's in the back seat.
Nice.
That's what we do.
Yeah. That is a testament to AI right there. So I have questions like the operational person in me, because that's where my background is in tech and stuff like that. What's the scale? Like, how do you scale like having the bodies, right? Because I think like that's what, the minute you said like there's actual people, I was like, well, how many bodies are we talking? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely spot on question. Now, the way that we think about it is, how do we get the most effective security across all of our customers? We've got a few thousand customers, every one of the 50 states of America. How do we do that well? And so it turns out that AI does a bunch of things really well. It does, first of all, it can filter out most of that stuff. Oh, that's the neighbor walking their dog across the street. Don't need to guard for that. So that's the first thing AI does. And that helps us scale quite a bit. That gets rid of almost all of the footage that you get on your Ring or your Nest or whatever cameras you have at home. But actually behind that is the secret sauce. What our AI does that nobody else has even like started doing research on is we think of our guard as our customer. And so the AI actually interacts directly with our guards. We send our guards little snapshots. Hey, I think in this video, this is the part of the video that you need to look at. Here's where the person's doing something suspicious. Here are three other relevant people that you may need to look at that are next to this property or that just left this property. And so the AI, what it does is it's really the centerpiece of the technology to ensure that not only can we scale and have one guard protecting hundreds of properties at once, but they can do it really, really, really well. And so that's number one. That's the kind of the technology disruption. And that's what enables us to be the only company in this space doing this. I mean, we're literally, I think it's about a $50 billion market. Every single small business in America needs this. Every single home in America should have this.
Yeah.
It's a huge space and there's no competitors, but it's all because we have that kind of technology advantage there. The second thing we did, and this is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many of your listeners will know this term, but it's called gamification. It's taking a business project or task and making it kind of like interesting and competitive. Yeah. And so we actually gamify our interface. So our guards, it's not a video game. Let me be really clear. This is very serious work.
Yeah.
But we make the work feel interesting and entertaining and give them feedback. Like when you push this button, this happens. And when you push this button, this happens. And if you push this button 50 times in a day, you get recognized, you've done the right thing and you've done your job. And so we've done a lot of that work as well. So we make the job engaging. Because one of the things I found right after that kind of aha moment was that guards are asleep.
Yeah, I was just thinking that exact, when you said that gamification, I was like, that is freaking brilliant, because you're exactly right. Like they get paid to just sit there and sleep, or there's no human being that can sit there and not zone out.
There is not. And that's what you just said is such a good point. And this is one of the neat things about being an entrepreneur for me is like, you get to dig into these problems that other people haven't solved. And I was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg's security team and, not with his permission, by the way. So, sorry, Mark, sorry, not sorry, by the way, because he's not sorry for anything he's done to the rest of us. So sorry, not sorry, amigo. So I was interviewing his security team and I learned like, oh my God, he has these people, some of whom are like former special forces. A lot of them are not. A lot of them are just kind of like regular Joes.
Yeah. But
you have this person who's like, I was in Iraq or Afghanistan and under threat of life and death.
Yeah.
And now I am protecting this guy's property in Hawaii where there is no one there but the maid. No one's there. Yeah. Literally no one. Nothing is happening for 24 hours. For a week, for a month, for a quarter, for almost a year, I've seen no human beings.
It's like a waste
there
of
is
skills.
Not,
yeah.
There's no person that can stay awake in that situation. Like it just doesn't exist. They're talking about like every 30 minutes, I do 5 push-ups and then I do 20 jumping jacks and I have to change my exercise regimen just to keep myself awake.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, what a waste.
Yeah.
Of somebody who.
Those are the guys that you pay for their intense, like, ability to withstand horrible things happening and still perform under pressure. Like I would imagine they would be the worst ones to perform when there's no fucking pressure. That's right?
There's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing for them. It was, and I was like looking at these guys and ripped. I try to work out and whatever, but like, what a waste! What a horrible waste! And so
money too. No
money, everything. I mean, by the way. I want you to guess Mark Zuckerberg's security budget.
Oh my God.
On a monthly basis. What do you think?
Unlimited? Like, I don't.
Basically.
Right? Like, I don't like, would there, I mean, for all of the stuff that he is over, like, there's no amount of money.
$1 million a month.
Jesus Christ. How many hungry, let's get into the hungry children.
Yeah, right.
Keep it that amount argument, right? No, but that's insane. So, I mean, imagine the cost savings that would occur with your product. Like,
it's crazy. And so, I mean, we have a lot, I mean, I love it. Like I love our customers. I love the interaction we have with them. One of the other cool things about having two-way audio and having real people is our customers know they're real people, right? So like if you go on our app, you'll see like this is Mike. Mike's the guy that's protecting my daughter going to school this morning. Sweet. Like I've now kind of developed this like
Cool.
quasi weird relationship with Mike because he's always protecting my kids, and I love that. And then the second thing is our customers start to get that, and then like during the holidays, my favorite thing, my favorite thing during the holidays is we'll have between 10 and 50 customers will come out on Christmas morning, and they'll have their kids with them,
Yeah.
and they'll have made us a Christmas card, and they hold it up to the camera and they wave to us and they say, "Good morning, Deep Sentinel." And our guard will be like, "Hey, good morning, Mrs. Johnson." And she's like, "I don't know if this is okay, but I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and thank you so much. You have changed our life. We had burglaries, or we had a burglary a year ago, and our kids are scared to go to sleep, and they every night say thank you to Deep Sentinel." And I'm just like, what a
That is
neat.
number one. That is amazing marketing material. The marketer in me is like, yes, thank you, please, because that is just such a strong testament to your product, but also like that is heartwarming on
It is
so many
so neat.
levels. Like,
It
oh my
is so
gosh.
neat.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I get a letter every week from a customer. Like again, same thing. I
Yeah.
I had a burglar at my home and I've not been able to sleep soundly. I sleep with a gun under my pillow and I'm scared I'm going to do something. Like, my
Yeah.
gosh, really, we're changing people's lives. And then there's businesses. I have this problem with catalytic converter theft, or I have a problem with
Yeah.
homeless people vandalizing my business every day. And I have to open up at 4 because my employees won't deal with this. And I have to close at 10 o'clock every night. I am at my wit's end. And for the first time in 2 years, I've been able to sleep. Thank you. Right. Like it's awesome. It's one of the neatest businesses I've ever had a chance to get involved in because of that just really deep
Yeah.
emotional thing.
Yeah, I mean, and the stats that you said about the other companies, I mean, just pisses me off, right? Because that means
Oh my God, right?
it's just good messaging, right? It's really they've done a really great job at selling a product, which like the marketer again in me is like, bravo, but from
Yeah,
just
congratulations.
being a
Good
human, I'm
wink.
like, that's shitty humaning. Like,
Well,
like
I mean, and think about it from a taxpayer perspective. Like, who's actually paying for
yeah,
that?
we are.
I am paying cops, whatever, $150,000 a year plus pension and all this other stuff. Plus, by the way, all the risk that creates. I mean, we've been exposed as a country this last couple of years to how complex and not aligned we are in terms
Yeah.
of what the job is of a police officer. But every single one of them, good cop, bad cop, whatever, is putting their life in a situation where they're concerned about their physical safety, their livelihood, their ability to come home and see their kids in the morning over a false alarm.
Yeah,
We're like,
or a damn garage door.
oh my gosh. And this is hundreds and thousands of times. I mean, we're talking Los Angeles County did an analysis, and over 15% of their entire budget was spent responding to false alarms from burglary companies. 15% of their budget was going straight into ADT's profit.
Yeah, damn. And imagine as people, like again, that kind of fight or flight. I imagine every time they go on a call, right? Your heightened senses, your adrenaline's going, all of that stuff, just as human beings, again,
Nothing.
like for nothing.
And by the way, like again, this is my entire thesis of my business is I think that because of that, when you look at the macro of
Yeah.
these alarms, they're actually making our society less safe.
Yeah.
They're making us lulled into a false sense of security. That's less safe.
Right.
They're bringing police officers into situations where police officers are at heightened alert.
Yeah.
That is definitively
That is not
required.
safe.
Those police officers in some situations have shot people. They have arrested homeowners. They have arrested the business owners, right? Like
Yeah.
you're creating a dangerous situation with our peak point of armed security for our society that is unnecessary. I mean, you mentioned the boy who cries wolf. Like at the end of that story, like the boy dies, right? Like these aren't little issues. These are very serious things, and we're sending people with lethal force to respond to an open garage door. Just take a half a step back and think about that. And we're doing that tens of thousands of times a day.
Yeah. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head as a taxpayer, it kind of pisses me off too. And now I want to go talk to people about this.
I mean,
right?
it's a big deal. And I mean, if you look at it, it's really hard though, because these alarm companies, because their business is so good,
Yeah.
they're just like eking these profits out. And so they have these big lobbying organizations that have like gone to city council meetings and said, well, if you pass this law, you're making the one burglary a year that we stop happen. And you're like, Yes,
It's fear mongering. It's fear-based
it's
marketing.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely fear mongering because you're stopping one burglary at the expense of tens of thousands of calls. There's all kinds of bad experiences. In fact, like search for go on Google right now and search for ADT arrest. And you're not going to see any arrests from ADT. Like this it's a little bonkers. What you're going to see is you're going to see ADT employees getting arrested. Like that's how ineffectual this is. Search for Deep Sentinel arrest. You're going to see lots of arrests. Right? Like
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
that's why I wake up every morning and why I go to work.
Yeah. And I mean, and you guys, I'm assuming like my brain also went to like your footage can be used in court, all of that good stuff, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Because that's always the whole too, right? You can catch them on camera, but can we actually leverage the camera
Yeah.
shot, the footage?
Yeah, I mean, and because generally the chain of custody is much shorter, we're calling police to respond to a crime in real time. So the clothing that the person is wearing at the time of the arrest is almost always exactly the same. So you don't have like this, well, here's this person. Is it exactly their right face? Because we arrested them the next day. They're wearing different clothes. They were at a different location. All these different issues. Our chain of custody, the chain of and life cycle of the criminal is typically measured in seconds. So they're at the same place, wearing the same clothes, with the evidence of the crime in their hands. So our success rate, not only in arresting them, but in terms of being able to enforce it. Again, think about this package stuff. The guy had the package, was wearing the same clothes, and was half a block away.
It's a no-brainer.
There you go, right?
Yeah. And I mean, imagine like, especially via footage like that, right? But that's that deep of a description, right? And then you at least have the points of their face too on your cameras, right? Like my mind goes to like facial recognition.
I mean,
with some funky
everything is
things there
very, very
too.
clear. And we don't even really need we don't use facial recognition right now, and we don't really need to because all of our crimes are right then, right there. Which especially for the pandemic when everyone was wearing a mask, ended up being incredibly helpful. The fact that we actually do pattern recognition on the entire person, we actually can recognize. We have a thing called person recognition, which is what is the clothing you're wearing, what is your stance, what is your approximate height, what is your build, those types of things we actually use for identification, and that during the pandemic ended up being incredibly helpful.
And I mean, how much, I mean, you may not know this, but false positives, you've narrowed those way down. I mean, I imagine like new
again, having
people,
the
new
person,
data, right?
That's
New people,
right.
new data. Yeah.
And we have people in the loop, and we have all these different protocols to kind of deal with that. So some of the videos you'll see from Deep Sentinel will be the homeowner comes up there wearing a hoodie and they grab their package, and you hear, "Hey, this is Deep Sentinel security. Can I help you with something?" And they say, "Oh," they look up to the camera.
Just me.
"I'm Mrs. Smith. It's me." And we say, "Okay, cool, Mrs. Smith. Can you verify your security passcode?" And she says her passcode, and you're done.
Yeah.
And it's really neat too because that's actually you said you had your marketer hat on. Think about that from a customer retention perspective.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, here I am paying Deep Sentinel to protect my home. I'm not 100% sure they're there. And every single month we verify that we're there with most of our customers. Even if it's a friendly incident, it's just a reminder that we're there and we're providing value. Again, kind of contrast that with an alarm or a camera system. If you have cameras, you're just getting alerts all day long, and it's annoying, and you've turned them off. So you're not getting reminded of any value.
Yeah.
You have, an alarm system, the only value that you're seeing is when you arm it and you kind of, maybe feel some value there. Ours is always, we are doing our job, and our job is directly tied to the things that matter to you.
Yeah. And what a wonderful mixture of AI with human beings too, right? Because you hear a lot of the people who are like anti-AI and all that stuff, right? But this is a great marriage of the two.
It is, and it's a great point. There are lots of reasons to be afraid of AI. I get it.
It needs governance, but it's still valuable.
Yeah, I mean, and I get why people don't want police to have facial recognition and have the government tracking every time I go to pick up my kid and every time I'm, maybe I'm going on a date, right? Like, and I don't want the government to know more about my relationship with my wife than my family. Like, that's just it is truly an invasion of privacy. I get it. One of the great things about our kind of approach there is, one, we're a private company. And that was actually a really important thought that I put into this.
Yeah.
Again, whether you're kind of far left or far right, I would way rather have a private company that is accountable to customers and shareholders than the kind of amorphous government that has an invisible budget that we pay for. I like the idea of, I have a customer, they pay me to do X, and I am very crystal clear on what my X is, and that is to protect them. And I then therefore kind of have very clean accountability to what I do, why I do it, and how I do it.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I also do feel I, as an individual, am at a point where I want to give back for my kids. My kids are 10 and 13, and they are my reason for being, period, full
Right,
stop.
of course. Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that what I'm doing is good for the world. So actually, when we were about to launch, about 3 months before launch, I did something I don't talk about very often, but I think it's relevant here, which is, some of the organizations that are really scared of AI, NAACP, the ACLU.
Yep.
So I had a friend of mine who used to work in the Department of Justice, and he has relationships with all these organizations. I asked him, could you please do me a favor and assemble them proactively, not at their request,
Right.
at my request. And I want to have a conversation with the legal counsels of those organizations and tell them what I'm going to do and get their feedback to find out, how do I use AI in a way that you find, maybe I'm not going to change my business model for you. Like, let's just be clear. I have a business.
No, but it's good to have the feedback, and it's good to not be in an echo chamber.
It is. And,
right.
what I found is I'm the only person that's ever done that, ever.
Sad.
In the history of those organizations.
Sad.
So that ended up being a good thing and a bad thing. It ended up being a bad thing because the first 3 hours were just like them venting. It was like, have you ever met somebody who's been like beaten their entire life, and you finally give them a chance? They emptied on me, and I was like, whoa. We recorded this on video, and it is me just sitting there kind of holding onto the desk for 2.5 or 3 hours, just getting yelled at. And then finally, about, like I said, 2.5, 3 hours in, this lady stands up. And I remember this lady to this day. She was awesome. And she goes, guys, this guy, here he is, little guy. I'm 5'6", so she's a little guy. He flew out here, and he paid all of us, and he paid this attorney, and he paid for our lunch, and he asked us for our feedback. And all we've done is yell at him. And it happened to be the same day Mark Zuckerberg was testifying in front of Congress.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we have this guy who's kind of being an a-hole and avoiding this entire conversation. Shouldn't we maybe give him a chance to say something and ask some questions? And that was the watershed moment. From that point forward, she said, could you just tell us what you want? And I said, look, thank you, first of all, because yes, you're right. We could do this. We could do this for the entire 8-hour day, and you guys could yell at me, and maybe you'll feel better. But I won't have gotten anything constructive so that I can run my business better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if we can stop right now with the yelling at me part and move into, like, you're not going to hold me accountable as the epitomic Silicon Valley entrepreneur. Like, doing that is not going to do anything. Just nobody's going to come after me. But if instead I tell you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing my best to meet your needs, what I understand your needs to be, you can correct me. You can tell me I understand your needs incorrectly. You can tell me that I understand your problems incorrectly. You can tell me that my way of solving things creates another problem. Those are the 3 questions I would like to go through. And then they did. They let me do it. And it became an awesome meeting. And at the end of the meeting, this woman came forward and she said, look, I understand that we don't want to cause racial problems and like perpetuate racial stereotypes. And so we need to make sure that your AI doesn't do that. But I have this unique situation that I live in the projects in Baltimore, and I have been broken into 3 times, and I don't feel safe in my home, and I deserve to feel safe in my home. So at the same time, I'm wearing both of the hats, and I would buy your system because I need to know that I'm safe.
Yeah.
That period.
Yeah. I mean, bravo for opening up the conversation there, because but you're right. I think if you needed that 3 hours of venting, that needed to happen, or else you wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
If I were not a parent, I would have not made it through that meeting. I'll tell you that, because as a parent, you kind of learn to let people just, okay, this is just the vomiting emotions stage.
Yeah.
And I was white knuckled. You can see it I've watched the video since then, and I'm like this. I'm just like, but I just gritted my teeth and I let them get it out, and it turned out to be awesome. They ended up giving us some really good feedback on how we hire. They gave us good feedback. I wasn't tracking race because I didn't want our AI to accidentally train on race.
Yeah.
And they actually told us, we need you to track race on every single one of your crime stops, every one of your things, because I want to know if any of your guards have become accidentally or
Yeah.
intentionally racist.
That's a good point.
I want to know if your AI is becoming intentionally or unintentionally racist. And so we actually changed some of our data collection techniques. We changed some of our data storage techniques. We changed our training. What else did we change? We changed some of our policies for enforcement. So it ended up being something that I'm really proud of. And it didn't have to go that way, but
No, but
it was
that's
cool.
interesting that they said keep it in, because I mean, you have to have it. You have to set the baseline for it being realistic to the community. Unfortunately, I guess, in order for to improve, right? I would think.
Yeah, and it was
that sounds.
It ended up being. I also learned about some of the hiring practices that they were recommending. I didn't actually implement all their hiring practices. They were maybe a little further left than I am, or maybe a lot farther left than I am. But we found a compromise. I told them what I was going to do, and I followed up. 3 months later, I said, "Here are the things I heard from you.
Yeah.
Here are the things that we did. Here are the things that we're not going to do. And if you have any further feedback, always feel free to reach out to me." And it ended up being really cool because, I think it also opened for them, right? These are the most senior people. They probably live in their own little echo chamber a little bit to a certain degree of what they see of the world. And not because they're intentionally doing that, but just because we all kind of do.
We all
And
do.
because of Facebook. Screw you, Mark. But I think it opened their eyes that there is a constructive conversation to be had here, and there is a willingness to work together, and that there is overlap. If we choose to do that, we can find overlap. And I love that. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about this company was the opportunity to kind of take those steps and have those types of conversations.
Yeah, because then you're not in, and I don't mean this as in race, I mean it as in psychology, like black and white thinking. It's this or it's that, right? There is some sort of that gray area. And I think a lot of the times people think AI is this or that, right? Like very much that, but it's the people behind it that program it that make it.
Well, and we're not in a world where we get to choose those things a lot of times. Right? Like you're not going to get to choose that AI is bad and therefore it's going away. I'm not in a position to do that. The people at Google are not in a position. AI is going to happen.
Yeah.
Period.
It's just a matter of how you want it to happen.
That's right. And so if you live in a world where you'll, and I will let some of my political inclinations come out here, where you allow the political parties to make us feel like it's black and white, and exactly. Pretend you do have the ability to turn things into these, highly bifurcated worlds, that only benefits the political parties, in my opinion. The real world lives in the middle. The real world lives in people that I feel this way, but I can have a conversation about this. Yeah. And that's where we're going to have progress. That's where we're going to find the recreation of small businesses. That's where we're going to find the reignition of the middle class in America. Yeah. And I really hate the fact that our political parties benefit from the creation of strife, because I don't see any of us in the middle benefiting from that at all. I've almost refused to engage in politics because I don't like either party, period. I definitely am registered one way, and I think one of them has a higher kind of calling, but and I've been exposed to so much trash on both sides that I could not loyally say I'm either of them. And I think the parties themselves are more aligned in disliking any of our negotiating and discussing in the middle than they are in actually being different or caring about what they do.
Yeah. And there's so much in and again, like I hate to make this political, but there's so much in the political sector that don't understand the technology at hand anyway.
Oh my word.
That it makes me like, when I hear like the thing, today we're recording this on the Elon Musk is going to buy Twitter day, right? So, and all this stuff. And, I hear it from relatives and they're like, oh my God, look at this. And I'm like, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this shit works. People
it is so weird to see. Like statement one, we should be in control of this.
Yes.
Statement two, we don't understand it at all. And statement three, it's wildly impactful and our policies will be wrong. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a good platform.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I could talk to you all day about this stuff. Just because it reminds me, I spent like 10 years in tech and it makes me miss it. So, well, thank you. Anything else that you kind of want to share with our guys about your product or about your stance when we wrap it up?
I love it. I love the conversation. Thank you for letting me talk about things that I'm really passionate about. This was fun. I definitely am a big believer in kind of where AI is going. If I could kind of take a technology stint. Obviously, I am mired in technology, but I know a lot of your entrepreneurs kind of they touch it and they're interested in it, but they don't live in it like the way that I do. If I could reach out to all of them and say, there are two things I would love you to read about. The two things that I think that we will all benefit from having the entire entrepreneurial class of America engaged in. The first one would be AI. Like
Yeah.
learn a little bit about it. Not again in these kind of black and white terms, but in like what can it do? I mean, we're surrounded by it. Whether it's Alexa is built on deep learning. Our Facebook algorithms in terms of recognizing our friends, that's deep learning. Tesla's self-driving car, that's deep learning. The filters we use on Snapchat, that's all deep learning. All of that stuff is deep learning. But here's where I think it gets super interesting. How do you use that in your business? How could you use speech recognition
Leverage it.
and change your business? Are there smarter ways that you could be using it in your phone system or for dictation or just any of the tasks that you got out there? Speech recognition, image recognition, those are all things that are tools now that are available to entrepreneurs and small business owners that can really change the way that you do business. And understanding that is something that I think is just, again, it's turned into these two black and white things. That's not what it is. What it is it's the stuff in the middle. It's the awesome stuff in the middle. So I think you guys will have a heyday there. The second one is crypto. And
I was gonna say we're gonna get out of this conversation without that coming up.
Right? But crypto, again, it's like it's been pulled apart by the media that we're generally exposed to, and like it's all trash or it's amazing and it's the future. It's a little bit of both, right? Like there's trash crypto out there.
There is.
And I would bet that more than half of the crypto is trash. So let me just acknowledge that side of the argument. But there's amazing stuff happening there, and it's changing a lot of businesses in terms of how do we think about transactions? How do we secure transactions? How do we look at and make business more transparent and visible out there? I don't know how I feel about NFTs yet. I think there will be some
I go back and forth too
out there, but crypto in general is one that I think, again, whether it's a hotel and you think about, okay, now you can look up your reservation using crypto and you can ensure that this is yours, or travel tickets. Here's your ticket. It's a token, and you can look at all the authentication around it. And I'm going to give it to you. And I'm not going to do some crazy, like it's $10,000 for a picture of an ape on your ticket. Like, I don't think that's going to work. But I do think that there are lots of neat things you can do that will engage your customers, and maybe it allows you to talk to them about different stuff. And you as a business owner say, look, I don't know that much about crypto, but I did this because I wanted to learn from our customers, and we know our customers know a lot about crypto. And I'll bet you $100 that you'll have 20 customers come to you and say, hey, this is really interesting. Why did you do this? Let me tell you, I happen to be Elon Musk, right? Like, you'll find people that will come out of the woodwork that are your customers you don't even know. And so I think there's all kinds of neat stuff you can do in both of those worlds.
No, I think that's great. I think you made a really good point around, there's crap and there's trash, but where there's innovation, there's going to be all of it. Like that's the thing that I just, when people kind of make it again, black and white, I'm like, there's humans involved. Like it's going to be messy, folks, but if you can just watch the really cool stuff come out of it, it'll be amazing. Well, this conversation was amazing. So let me just tell you that. So
thanks, Michelle. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to know more about Deep Sentinel, the best place to go to learn about that is our YouTube channel. As you mentioned, we have tons of marketing material.
Yes,
we produce a video every week of like the best crime stops. It's like watching cops. Just go to YouTube and search for Deep Sentinel. And then the other way is if you want, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and I publish little snippets here. A lot of them are self-serving, caveat, but a lot of them are just like, kind of general observations about business and the world. And I think you get a sense of where I sit politically. I comment on that every once in a while as well.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And we'll make sure to link stuff in the notes too. So thank you so much, David.
Awesome. I enjoyed it a ton. Thank you. I'd love to come back sometime.
Yeah.